Welcome everybody to the Cover 2 podcast live on OC Rock Radio here from Saddleback College. I'm Nick Neenan.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we got another Power Pack show for you guys today. We're going to be jumping into the NFL in just a bit, but a little later on in the show. NBA, Jimmy Butler traded. LeBron, Lakers, what's going on with them? And the Warriors, what's going on with them?
Controversy.
They got some infighting. Also, we'll jump into a little college football a little bit later, give a more analysis on who we think is going to be kind of the last couple of teams here fighting for these spots like we usually do every single week.
Alabama.
Exactly. Alabama, Clemson. You probably had Clemson in there too. And then also, of course, we'll do Do You Care? We'll talk about all the other sports, interesting AL MVP or AL Rookie of the Year we'll talk about as well. But let's start today with the game. The game, this is one of the games we play every single week, and it is... Did Le'Veon Bell report to the Pittsburgh Steelers this week?
No.
And now we're going to play a new game. Is Le'Veon going to play this season? No. Yeah, Le'Veon Bell now has decided to pass up the deadline to sign his franchise tag this season with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He found a loophole. Him and his agent found a way to get out of this contract and be able just to go into free agency next year. And that means since he isn't signed to a contract by this week, the deadline was yesterday, Tuesday, if you're listening live. And so that means that he's not playing this season. And Le'Veon Bell becomes in most leagues, the worst fantasy football draft pick of all time.
Man.
Having not played, it's essentially like picking a player that tore your ACL in week one.
I know someone in my draft, I think, picked him like second overall.
Oof.
So
luckily, I traded him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I traded him.
You're smart.
Yeah, exactly. But enough about fantasy football. Jared, what's your take initially on this? I know we talk about this almost every single week. We play that stupid little game. But he's now not showing up, and Le'Veon Bell he's not playing the rest of the season. This is something I absolutely did not expect to happen.
Yeah, no, this is coming completely out of left field. And since the beginning of the season, I have always said that Le'Veon Bell would come back in week 10 or week 11, whatever was the deadline date, which would have been this week. I was like, he's going to come back this week. He has to play at least 6 games to accrue a full NFL season so that he's eligible to be a free agent this upcoming offseason, if that makes sense. Well, apparently Le'Veon Bell found a loophole in this whole system. Him and his team found a loophole to where he actually doesn't have to come back to the Steelers. He doesn't have to report. Now, I'm looking at the screen right now. Le'Veon Bell basically forfeited $14.5 million this year.
It's a lot of money, Jared.
That is a lot of change. So he's taking a big, big gamble on himself that he's going to get paid this offseason and that he's going to be able to make up that money. I'm sure he will. I'm sure there are teams out there that are not necessarily good that can use a fantastic running back of his services and are willing to pay him big bucks. It's just not very common in today's sport to see a player basically give up on a season. I really don't remember or know if this has ever happened before where a player has sat out an entire year. And one of his main points is he doesn't want to risk injuring himself, so that he's not as attractive in the offseason to other teams. That I completely understand. From a health standpoint, he's sitting here saying, I don't want to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore. Why would I come back for 6 games if I don't have to? And when I can just train, get my body right. Because listen, he could come back this week, first carry of the game, someone can hit him in his knee or he can tear his shoulder. I mean, there are so many different things that can happen in this sport that from the health standpoint, I completely get it. But like I said, I'm just very, very shocked by this. But he found a loophole, and Le'Veon Bell will not be playing.
Yeah, and we've seen players kind of take years off. I mean, you could kind of say that Dez Bryant took most of this year off. He didn't take the entire year off, but there was a chance we weren't going to see Dez Bryant play this season. And Dez Bryant went out there and got hurt in practice one of the first couple days. And so I think with this, I almost want to ask you, because obviously you're close to this Dez Bryant situation, being a Cowboys fan and all. Do you think Le'Veon maybe saw Dez Bryant get hurt last week and said, I don't want that to happen to me. Des Bryant is a similar caliber player to who I am. I'm sure he was training just as much as me. And I saw him, and maybe he was on the teeter of like, hey, there's a chance I want to go back to Steelers, and then he sees a star like Des Bryant go down with the Saints in his first week of practice and goes, you know what, screw it. I don't need the money. I don't need whatever extra $6 million because he'd already forfeited $8 million in the season anyways. What was going to essentially be six more. I know that's crazy to say, but what was going to be just a little bit more to play the season. And they found a loophole, which means he could still get a max contract or a mega contract from really any team in the offseason without any restriction from the Steelers. And so I don't blame him, but I want to ask you, is there any of this Dez thing that happened where he decided that he didn't want to come back?
Oh, for sure. I think if you don't think that, I think you're very naive. These guys are still human. They follow other people, on social media and other players around the league, and they know what's going on. And especially with the Des Bryant case, that was all over. That was on ESPN. That was on the NFL Network.
Yeah.
That was all over the place. So if you're a sports fan and you have a telephone, or you have a cell phone, a smartphone, and you get updates, then yes, you probably heard about this Des Bryant thing. So was that the main factor? No, but did that definitely hurt his chances of coming back? Yeah, of course. I mean, if I were Le'Veon Bell and I saw Des Bryant get hurt, and he, Des Bryant only signed a 1-year contract. Now, obviously, it wasn't for $14 million. I'm not sure what the amount was. But for Le'Veon sitting here saying, I'm only on a 1-year deal, I had no security past this season, yeah, I think that definitely played in his mind as, all right, this is just another example of why I do not want to come back and play right now. If Le'Veon Bell was under contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, then of course he'd be playing, right? If they were able to come to a long-term agreement this offseason, we wouldn't be sitting here even talking about this right now. But it really, I don't think you can sit here and just blame Le'Veon Bell. Or I don't think you can sit here and just blame the Steelers. I think really it's both of these sides right here. I think Le'Veon Bell has been a little stubborn because he hasn't been necessarily a complete saint throughout his college or his NFL career, right?
Yeah.
He's had that problem with marijuana early on in his career, and unfortunately, this is something that he can't control, but he has also had some injury problems. So from that standpoint, from the Steelers' perspective, they're saying, listen, because of those two reasons, maybe that's why they didn't want to give him a huge contract. But from Le'Veon's standpoint, I think it's a little bit of stubbornness, but I think this is also kind of a new wave of thinking, and I think, potentially other star players who might be in this position with Le'Veon Bell who get franchise tagged for a second time, I think they might take a hard look at this. I mean, you can look and see what the Redskins did with Kirk Cousins. They franchise tagged him twice. Right now, obviously, he got a fully guaranteed contract from Minnesota Vikings, 3 years, like $84 million or something like that. So he got his money. But I think this might be opening a new door for players to say, hey, this is another way that we can, control the situation and keep ourselves healthy and not let the NFL just kind of walk all over us and do whatever they want.
Well, and the franchise tag was not created for star players either. It was kind of created for a Kirk Cousins, for example. Kirk Cousins I wouldn't call him a star quarterback. The star quarterbacks are Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Russell Wilson. Those, Philip Rivers.
Drew Brees.
Exactly. Yeah, my bad. Did not mean to Philip.
You said Philip Rivers before Drew Brees, so I just wanted to. I had
Big
to give
Ben.
him some love.
I forgot about Big Ben. But so Kirk Cousins was not a star. That is where the franchise tag is meant. What they're saying is, we don't know what to pay you because you're not a star player, but you're not you're not a bench guy. So here, we'll just give you what the rest of the quarterbacks are getting paid for 1 year. Le'Veon, it's different. Le'Veon is arguably the best running back in the league, one of the best NFL players in the league. So that is where the franchise tag doesn't make as much sense because his franchise tag is probably not what he should get paid. David Johnson, for example, is getting paid $13 million a year. With the Cardinals, I'll admit, you're seeing that the running back position without an offensive line, without a quarterback, without a good offensive coordinator, kind of goes away a little bit, right? And so I think what Le'Veon is saying here, and this is clear, I want like $18 million. I want $17 million. I don't want this BS franchise tag that's not meant for a star player like me. It's meant for guys that are just a little bit lower. The teams don't know what to give them because there's not a lot of argument there. They go, okay, well, you throw 26 interceptions and you throw 40 touchdowns, but we don't make the playoffs and we don't do this. So I think that's where this comes in too. And you're right. If more star players get in this situation, I would expect them to do something very similar like this.
I want to touch on something really quick that you said, and specifically the words running back. Because Le'Veon Bell does not see himself as a running back.
And that's a whole different thing,
And
too.
that is another major reason why he has not signed a contract with the Steelers. The Steelers, while they obviously, I'm sure, love Le'Veon Bell and wish that he were on the field, they put the franchise tag on him as a running back, right? So he is automatically now in that category. Le'Veon Bell thinks of himself as basically a do-it-all
It's a
type
utility player,
Right.
but a star utility.
Right. He can
player,
play running back. He can block. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He can catch passes out of the slot. He probably thinks he can be Antonio Brown and go outside as a receiver and catch passes. He thinks so highly of himself, and I'm not saying that he's cocky or he's wrong, because like Nick mentioned, he is one of, if not arguably the best player in the NFL, right? So I think he is right in that standpoint that he can do a lot more than just be a running back. So for him, he's saying, listen, I want to be paid. I want $17, $18 million. And originally people were like, whoa, for a running back, that's a lot of money. But he's like, wait a minute. I'm not just a running back. I do a whole lot more than that. There are so many little things that I do that maybe a normal person does not see in a game, that I am one of the most valuable pieces on your team. So for the Steelers to want to just pay me as a running back, I don't see it that way. And I think that is a major key in this whole equation that maybe some people aren't realizing.
Well, yeah, and then again, what screwed him was the fact that Todd Gurley, who I would consider way more of a running back than a pass-catching back, although he catches passes primarily because he's wide open because that offense is so good, right? But Todd Gurley, who's clearly the best running back in the NFL right now, right? You could make the argument that the MVP is potentially Todd Gurley this year. He got paid $15 million. Which is, $500,000 more than Le'Veon got paid? David Johnson, who is way more of Le'Veon style, where he gets split out by the Cardinals. His last game against the Chiefs, he had a touchdown both receiving and rushing, and his yards were very similar, receiving and rushing. He got paid $13 million. It's right in the middle. So Le'Veon didn't get helped out by his other running backs in the league. I forget, does Zeke have a contract yet? Or
no, he's still on his rookie deal.
Yeah, so I assume Zeke will probably get something similar to that unless one of these situations comes up with him too. But so that's what screwed him also, is that they go, well, why would we, Todd Gurley's having the best year, one of the best years running backs ever had, and he's getting paid $15 million. David Johnson has a very similar skill set to you, and he's getting paid $13 million. So why should we jump $3 million, $4 million over them? That is where I think that's at least the Steelers thinking in this. Understandable, and we can also understand Le'Veon Bell's situation. It sucks because we're not going to get to see one of the best players in the league both play in the regular season and the playoffs, because the Steelers are going to make the playoffs this year. But it's just what happens, and I don't know if this is an NFL issue necessarily, but this is more of just players getting a little smarter and deciding better for their careers. And I think this Dez Bryant thing, and also Earl Thomas earlier in the year, these guys that were talking about wanting to play, going to the right teams. I don't want to play for this team. I want to play for this team. They get hurt, out for the season. And now, Le'Veon's like, well, I don't want that to happen to me because there's James Conner. And I think he clearly sees that James Conner has been a pretty formidable running back for the Steelers, and that they don't necessarily need Le'Veon this year. Right. So let's jump to the Steelers, though. We'll jump to the Steelers, and then we'll go to who we think Le'Veon is going to go to in the offseason. Pittsburgh Steelers, they're 6-2-1 right now, 6 consecutive wins, and a blowout win against the Panthers on Thursday night. Where do you see the Steelers now? Do you think this even matters to them, or do you think they're just still rolling and they'll just go into the playoffs and be Super Bowl contenders this year?
Listen, at this point, with the way that James Conner is playing and the fact that Le'Veon Bell has not stepped foot in that locker room at all, I really don't think from the team's perspective or head coach Mike Tomlin that this is a huge deal right now. The beginning of the season, training camp, off-season, there were all these rumors, and we weren't sure exactly what Le'Veon was going to do, so I'm sure a lot more people in that locker room were optimistic that Bell would come back. But at this point, and even Ben Roethlisberger, he apparently texted Le'Veon Bell a couple days ago before this deadline, and he got no response. So I think at this point, if you're a player in that locker room, you have to say, you know what? Best of luck to Le'Veon Bell,
Yeah.
but we're focusing on our guys right now, and we're sitting atop of the AFC North at 6-2, and we have an opportunity to win, and we're doing well with our backup running back. So I think they keep going and doing what they're doing, and really I don't see this team slowing down much, other than unfortunately getting injured. But I don't think you can sit here and say, oh man, we thought we were going to get Le'Veon Bell, and now he's not coming, and we're not going to win, right? You can't have that mentality, because that's it's not like James Conner's playing bad. James Conner is putting up similar numbers to what Le'Veon Bell did last year, right? Now, I'm not trying to sit here and say James Conner from a talent perspective is as good as Le'Veon Bell, but just from a numbers standpoint in the way that this offense runs, running backs are able to have success. And I think James Conner is showing that. So when you have Antonio Brown on the outside who commands a double team, when you have Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a very good complementary receiver, and you have the veteran Big Ben, things are going to open up for James Conner or whatever other running back is in the backfield for that team. So right now, if I'm James Conner, this is your opportunity to shine, right? Yeah. I think this is his second year in the league, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. So he's obviously still on his rookie contract for another 2 years. But this is your opportunity to show that you are a starting NFL caliber running back who can tote the rock for 16 games and carry the workload. This is where he makes his money for the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, James Conner has every opportunity he can to get his money in 2 or 3 years, right? But yeah, the Steelers team they're rolling. I believe I picked them to make the Super Bowl this year, so they're now finally getting to that projection. I'll admit earlier it was looking like, oh, I screwed up. I shouldn't have done that. Le'Veon didn't come back, right? But, it looks like it's more maybe of the system and the star players that is leading the Steelers team rather than Le'Veon Bell. I still think Le'Veon Bell can absolutely help any NFL team. But just it doesn't look like the Steelers. It's just not going to work out. And clearly it's not going to work out because Le'Veon is now not going to play. He can't play. This is a moot point. Le'Veon's not playing for the Steelers ever again. So, we'll see what happens. But James Conner, I think, is a very formidable replacement. All right, Le'Veon Bell. Where does he go? I'll give my prediction first. I think I see 2 teams here. And they're 2 teams with good quarterbacks and a terrible rest of their team. Okay? So these quarterbacks are dominating. There's a lot of cap space. First team, Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck.
Who's having a great comeback year, by the way.
And they're having a solid year, too.
Hasn't been sacked in 4 straight games.
I know. Yeah, I heard that the other day. Of course, there's a video going around of Quentin Nelson, the recent draft pick that we were both so high on, just pancaking a couple defenders last game, too. So, if you get a highlight reel of offensive lineman play, your team's offensive line is pretty good, right? If you don't get to see that.
And you also know that your team probably isn't that good because usually offensive linemen don't get any time.
Exactly, yeah. But so, Colts are 4-5 right now with a terrible team, to be honest. Their defense is very good. Most of their offensive weapons besides their line and Andrew Luck is bad, and T.Y. hasn't had the year he's had the last couple of years. Le'Veon Bell, I think, could go there. But even more so, I think in the New York Jets is probably a better team because you have Sam Darnold, who, and Andrew Luck is one of the best quarterbacks in the league when healthy. I think Sam Darnold could kind of end up being sort of like an Andrew Luck, though, later. And that team has a chance to win games, and they're not. They're doing the exact opposite thing the Colts are doing. They're getting in some of these games, and they're just losing these games. They just lost to the Bills.
At home, they lost by
they got killed.
40 to...
It doesn't make the Bills season doesn't make any sense this season, okay? They beat the Vikings at home with Josh Allen, and then they beat the Jets on the road with Matt Barkley. So, I said the Bills beat the Vikings on the road. I meant to say, yeah. But, so, I don't know. You can't lose to the Bills, though. You can't lose to the Bills, okay? And I think I've seen videos on TMZ of Le'Veon Bell saying, hey, throw $100 million at me, New York Jets.
They have the money.
In the past. Literally, he said that in the past. So, I could see that more than, Indianapolis necessarily. New York is just a bit more glamorous than Indiana. Correct, Jared? Yeah. So, I think it's the Jets and the Colts, one of those teams that has not a lot of talent around them. You add that quarterback, running back, dynamic, and I think you have something there.
I like that Colts pick. That was not in my head, nor a team that I was really thinking about. But now that you mentioned it, I think that's actually a great idea and a potentially really good situation for Le'Veon Bell. I do agree with you. One of my two teams, I have two teams as well. Mm-hmm. The first one was the Jets. And because of Sam Darnold, he is a young quarterback, and you want to be able to have a outlet for him. So give him a great running back who he can hand the ball off to, and let him do his thing. The second team is in the NFC, the Chicago Bears.
Oh.
And
they have some running backs, though. They have some running backs.
They do have some running backs, but none of them are even close to Le'Veon Bell. Okay? I think Mitchell Trubisky is a very good quarterback, and I think he's growing each and every year, and basically each and every week. I think he's playing better and better. Their offense right now can score points, right? They're putting up, I think they're averaging 28 or close to 30 points a game, which is really, really good, especially in that division. That defense is pretty nasty. Obviously, you have Khalil Mack. They drafted Roquan Smith in the first round. So that defensive line and linebacking core is really, really good. I think if you were to put Le'Veon Bell in that backfield, you have Allen Robinson as your kind of number one go-to wide receiver. Kevin White, who has been somewhat of a bust, but if he can be a complimentary guy and doesn't have to worry about being the number one guy, maybe he can, that can take some pressure off of him.
I actually like Anthony Miller on that team, too.
Anthony Miller as well, Taylor Gabriel. Mm-hmm. They have some nice weapons. They have Trey Burton at tight end. This Chicago Bears team, I think, is on the rise. And I think they're, a couple pieces away from really contending.
Oh, exactly.
And so I think if they were to get a Le'Veon Bell, and listen also, when it gets into November and December, it gets pretty damn cold in Chicago.
But he's used to that.
Right?
He's played Pittsburgh.
But my point to that is he's used to that in Chicago. When they're playing, outdoors and it's cold and they want to control the ball and they can't throw the ball 40, 50 times a game, you hand that ball to Le'Veon Bell 30, 35 times a game.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
So I think that would be a great fit. I think that should be at the top of his list, the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, weather-wise, you look at it, you got indoors in Indianapolis, like I said, so the weather's not really a factor, but it's Indianapolis, okay? I'm sorry, but I have relatives from Indiana. It sucks there, okay? I'm just saying.
You get the NFL Combine there. That's about all I know.
Who cares, though?
Yeah.
You got the Pacers who can never get past the Heat, okay? So, you look at that, and then we said Chicago and New York. We picked two things. I'll actually have another team. Why not the Miami Dolphins? He already trains in Miami. Not that they have a quarterback or anything, but Miami, that's a destination people want to go to. They don't necessarily have a giant running. I mean, they have the ageless one, Frank Gore, as one of their bell cows right now, and then they have Kenyon Drake, who really hasn't worked out. You add Le'Veon in that mix, somewhere he already lives. You have a little bit of a LeBron situation there. LeBron came to the Lakers. He already lived in L.A. Why can't Le'Veon go to Miami?
No state income tax.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's a big thing too. So there's a couple teams he go to, but I see him going somewhere where there's already an established quarterback. I love that Bears pick as well. I just don't know where you have a Tariq Cohen, you have a Jordan Howard. You got to mix that up. You got to figure out what you do with those.
Trade one of them. Have the other one as a complimentary back.
I would trade Jordan Howard. Tariq
Probably
Cohen,
get more value.
Tariq Cohen and Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a nasty running back core. All right, let's move on. Rams and Chiefs. Now, we assumed this game was going to be played in the Great Down Under, Mexico City.
Monday night.
Monday Night Football at Estadio Azteca. But that's not happening anymore, Jared, is it? It's not. It's going to be played in L.A. now because I guess the Mexico City Stadium could not keep up their field. There's videos and pictures going around of this. I don't know what happened here, but the field just looks awful. I mean, there was just marks everywhere. It looked like a bunch of guys had gone in with like shovels and digged up the field, like as a prank or something. I don't understand it. But so nonetheless, the game, the bigger news on this game that we were going to kind of predict it anyways, but the bigger news on this game is now that this game is not being played in Mexico City. The Rams have been training in Colorado Springs at the Air Force Academy the last couple of days trying to get used to the elevation. Now they're coming back to L.A. One of the other reasons they might have been out of L.A. is because their training camp or where they practice has been just fire-ridden the last couple of days, so you don't necessarily want to be in that atmosphere either. But the Rams now having to travel back just to practice for this week. The Chiefs now have to change travel plans. They're now coming to Los Angeles. It's now a clear home game for the Rams. road game for the Chiefs. I believe tickets go on sale for that game in about 30 minutes if you're listening live. So if you want to go, go to Rams, of course, in one of the breaks of our show. But go to Rams.com. You get tickets to that game of these two first-place teams. So, Jared, if you have anything to say about the field and all that stuff, say it. If not, give a prediction on who do you think wins this potential Super Bowl matchup.
Oh, I'm definitely giving a prediction, but I definitely have something to say about this field.
All right. Yeah.
This, to me, is... Listen,
you know what it reminds me of? The Hall of Fame game a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what this is? The NFL is very much obviously proactive in trying to expand the game, right? Mm-hmm. There's been talks and ongoing talks about putting a team in London. Now, I don't agree with that, and I don't think it's going to happen because the travel will just be terrible. Too atrocious. Yeah. But the NFL is always looking to expand, right? So I think this is the second or third year in a row that there's been a one game during the year and a Monday night game that's been played in Mexico City. And they're trying to build the brand, of course. That's always what it's about. Keep building and building and building. So Mexico City has known about this, right, for over a year, right? They played a game last year.
They've had games in the past.
What I've been hearing is that at the beginning of the La Liga matches that started over a month ago, they put in new grass, new turf, right? By the third week of these matches, people could see that the grass was starting to come up and that the field was starting to deteriorate. So at that point, how did they not bring in another grass field and or try to make different accommodations then, as opposed to just playing it out? And now, like you mentioned, it's literally like an elementary school field where the grass is just torn up.
It looks like the field down the street from my house.
No, it does. Yeah. It's absolutely it's astonishing to me because I think Mexico City hurt themselves in a huge way, because if I'm the NFL right now, I'm saying, we're done with you guys, right? Like this is an opportunity for not only the NFL to shine, but for Mexico City to shine, right? And show that they are pro football, and I mean football Americano, not just soccer.
Correct. Yeah, what they did here now was they showed disrespect to the NFL, saying, well, we cared about our soccer games, our other football games, but then, NFL, okay, you show up, you fix your own field, kind of thing. And then the NFL said, no, we'll go play at the Coliseum instead. Okay, yeah, so I agree with you. I think Mexico City hurt themselves. Tourism now is going to go down for this week because you were going to have 100,000 fans come to this game. You were probably going to have a lot of Mexican fans there for the game, but there was probably a lot of fans traveling.
Oh, of course.
It's like the London game. There's a lot of English people at the games, but nonetheless, there's still a lot of traveling fans. So you're getting that tourism. You're getting people booking the trip of a lifetime to see your NFL team play in a crazy city, in a different country. That's not now happening. Everyone can just come to LA instead.
Right. Yeah, I know we have to wrap this segment up, so very quickly, the fact that this game is now moving to LA, and the reason it is moving to LA is because technically this should, on the schedule, it is Chiefs at Rams. Yeah. So really, the Rams were getting a home game taken away from them. So that is why it is now moved back to LA and not in Kansas City. So that's a reason.
Quick prediction, real quick, because we got about less than a minute to go.
Rams, because it's now in LA.
I actually agree with you. I had the Chiefs. I do my pick 'em every week and stuff like that. I had the Chiefs. I'm not switching into the Rams, even though they lost Cooper Kupp. The Chiefs kind of struggled against the Cardinals, strangely, last week.
Their defense is horrible.
Yeah, their defense is horrible. So how are they going to stop? If they can't stop Josh Rosen and David Johnson and aging Larry Fitzgerald, how are they going to stop just this monster Rams offense?
It's going to be a shootout. I mean, 70, 80 points I could see.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be, I think I did book my thing at 77. That's how many points I thought. Yeah. So we need to get a break. We'll come back. We're going to switch topics completely. NBA talk. Lots to talk about there. That's on the other side of this break here on the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio.
Once the ball's tipped, nothing else matters. And I think that's the approach that everybody takes every time they step on the floor.
Hey, Kevin, have you and Draymond been able to hash anything out?
No.
Do you see that happening anytime soon?
I'm sure it will. We got a long season ahead.
Did he cross the line with anything last night that was said?
I'm going to keep that in-house. That's what we do here. I mean, obviously, I know you guys got a job to do, but I'm not trying to get nobody no headlines. What happened. We're trying to move on. Just trying to play basketball.
There are days in sports that are pretty universally positive. Every baseball team has a shot on opening day. On National Signing Day, every new recruit has loads of potential. And a team's introductory press conference, every player who just got traded is going to be nothing but sunshine and roses from here on forward. Enter Jimmy Butler, who was trotted out by the Sixers this morning to all the pomp and circumstance we've come to expect from these things. There was the photo session, holding up the jersey, the nice words from the owner and GM. Elton Brand said he believes the Sixers now have 3 of the top 20 players in the NBA.
Back here live on the Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock Radio with some major NBA talk. We have a lot of news coming out of the NBA this week. We have a championship contending team and 2-time championship team that is in a little bit of disarray. That's the right word to say. We have a team in the East that just got a big-time major star. Will that catapult them into the playoffs and far into the postseason? And we have a little drama in LA, of course.
Of course there is.
Right.
Yeah.
There can't be a LeBron James team without drama. But we do want to begin in the East with the Philadelphia 76ers, who made a blockbuster trade with Minnesota Timberwolves, acquiring Jimmy Butler. And the Timberwolves acquired Dario Saric and Robert Covington. Nick, Jimmy Butler, he's a household name, big-time player. What do you think about this trade? Does this put the Sixers in the conversation with the Celtics as possibly the best team in the East?
You know what? It absolutely does. First of all, but I don't know if this catapults them just now. I got to see how Jimmy Butler plays with the 76ers, but I think it just puts them on the plane with the Celtics now. I still think the Celtics are an amazing basketball team, young talent combined with vets like Al Horford, right, and Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. And I think this puts the 76ers on their level. Ben Simmons is great. Joel Embiid is great. He's a budding star. But the Markelle Fultz thing didn't necessarily work out for 76ers. He obviously has a mental block with shooting. He looks like me in the 5th grade when he shoots the ball. That is not a pretty thing. When you see a white kid shoot a basketball like me, you tell him to quit. Okay? Markelle Fultz looks like that. Now shooting in the NBA and shooting free throws like Charles Barkley's golf swing. So that obviously didn't work as a number 1 pick. They could have drafted, I believe, Alonzo that year, who would be a lot more contributing player. I'm thinking Jason Tatum, potentially.
So you're saying it's a bust.
I'm saying that even if he figures it out, the dude is probably going to end up not being on the 76ers by the end of this because they have a Jimmy Butler now. But so I think this puts them on that plane now with the Celtics. No disrespect for the 76ers. They are a great team. This now does put them as a contender. And Jimmy Butler, obviously, he had this weird stuff for the Timberwolves where he just was saying, I don't want to play for you guys anymore. That had to affect the Timberwolves season. They haven't won a game on the road, I believe, this season yet. Andrew Wiggins has not ended up panning out. Karl-Anthony Towns apparently arguing with Jimmy Butler multiple times. Tom Thibodeau essentially just saying, let's just trade him. I don't want to see him in the Timberwolves uniform again. So obviously a volatile situation over there. He now goes to Philly. My only question is, if he doesn't like Philly, does he do the same thing? Right? This is another star-studded team. Now they give away Saric, who was a key part. Covington, who I even thought was a more key part, but you got to give up pieces. And then they give up a 2nd-round pick. I think for the Timberwolves here, this is a loss for them because you had to get a 1st-round pick. I mean, the Houston Rockets were potentially, there's rumors that they were going to trade 4 1st-round picks for Jimmy Butler. How the Timberwolves go from potentially getting 4 1st-round picks to 0 and a 2nd? That, I think, is a loss. So I think Timberwolves absolutely lose this trade no matter what. Because not only do you lose confidence in your team, because they just go, well, why doesn't Cat just do this in 2 years? Right? And say, I don't want to play anymore. Trade me. You're not going to gain value from me. But they get solid players back, but they don't get absolute stars, and they don't get that 1st round. I think Timberwolves lose this. 76ers bump themselves up. But my question to you, Jerry, is why doesn't Jimmy Butler just do this again if he doesn't like the 76ers? That he has that kind of vibe now.
I think in this particular situation, you can really only do this once. If Jimmy Butler were to not pan out in Philly and were to basically throw a temper tantrum and say, trade me, I don't want to be here anymore, I think that would basically like put a stamp on his forehead saying like, this is your MO, this is who you are. His trade value and his money value would fall so low that teams basically wouldn't want him anymore. Now, I'm sure, a desperate team would take him, but he wouldn't get a max deal. And he would probably get like somewhere towards the vet minimum. Like you know what I mean? Like you can't. You have to attract yourself in the right way and put yourself out there in the right way. And this was a very unique situation when he was in Minnesota. He obviously handled it a certain type of way, and it we'll see if it works out for him. But to do that same thing again with another team is basically saying, all right, you're trying to completely control the narrative. And like you're trying to be like the commissioner and just control everything. And unfortunately, that's just not the way that it works. So I don't think he will do it again. It's you hear stars' names getting traded, and you just think, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. It's a blockbuster trade. All these big things, right? And I'm not trying to downplay this because this is obviously a huge deal for the 76ers more than it is for the Timberwolves. But I really want to focus on what the Sixers gave up. You mentioned it, and I did as well. Saric and Robert Covington, those two pieces for the 76ers team, I think they were so vital because when you look at this roster and how they're built, Joel Embiid is obviously one of the best big men in the game. And he can stretch out and shoot the three, and he does have a mid-range game. But really, you want him kind of running up and down in the low post, right? You have Ben Simmons, who is Magic Johnson-esque. I'm not saying he is Magic Johnson, but he has that type of game where he can easily drop 15 assists a game. He gives no-look passes. He loves to get his teammates involved, right? What he's not is he's not a shooter. Okay? What I'm trying to say is the Sixers gave up two of the three best shooters. The only real shooter left on this team is J.J. Redick. And who is coming off the bench, who in my opinion now needs to start for this team. Because I really think they gave up the majority of their shooting. So if you think about it, I think this team is going to turn into like a half-court offense type of team where you're not going to have to worry about the threat of them shooting threes and just completely outscoring you. Now, defensively, I think the Sixers have improved, and I think they're going to be way better defensively, right? They'll probably give up just around 100 points a game, if not less. But on the offensive side of the ball, from a shooting standpoint, I don't think they improve themselves because Jimmy Butler is not a sharp shooting three-pointer guy. Now, he can make threes, but he's more of a mid-range guy, right? He likes to have the ball in his hands, but guess what? So does Ben Simmons. So there could be some conflict there. So in the end, I think this trade will work out because I think Jimmy Butler, will say, listen, I got what I want. Now it's time for me to go prove why I deserve a max deal. So I think he's going to basically do whatever the Sixers want him to do. And I think this, I think the Sixers obviously will make the playoffs, and I think they will go far. But from a shooting standpoint, I think they're not done making moves. I think they're going to have to go out and get another shooter, another perimeter guy that can stretch defenses out. Because at this point, other than J.J. Redick, if I'm going up against the Sixers, I'm saying all we got to do, control the paint, control the middle, because they don't have any shooters on the outside. Yeah. So
just look at the Celtics. They drain threes.
Right.
So it's like that's the team, right?
Well, that's where the NBA is going. Look, the Warriors, the Rockets. That's what teams are going to now. It's not the big men anymore. It's how many threes can we get up? Let's try to score 120 points a game. It's almost like an all-star game every night.
No, exactly. And we'll look at an example of this a little bit. The Lakers. They're not a three-point shooting team, and that's one of their problems right now. Like I said, we'll get into that at the end of the segment, but. That's just, it's part of the NBA. The NBA, it's like trying to run the ball every play in this day's NFL, right? It's just not, ask the Cardinals. Doesn't work. Running in between the sticks doesn't work, right? Pounding the paint every play might work some games, might get you into the playoffs, but it ain't going to win you a championship. And the team you're looking at, up the road, up the 95 freeway on the East Coast, the Boston Celtics, that is the team that you want to beat. You need to find a way to beat that team. You're going to be able to beat the Sixers, the Pacers. You'll be able to beat Miami, right? You can be able to beat Orlando. Who you might not beat, though, is the Celtics because they shoot threes and you don't. And threes, last time I checked, count more than twos.
You would be correct.
So eventually threes are going to win you a series. So I agree with you. I actually think both these teams, this trade, I didn't like it from either team. Like you said, they gave up Sarge. I really liked Robert Covington, and you got to get a first. You got to get a first for Jimmy Butler, an all-star. And then on the 76ers case, they don't get enough. They don't get a 3-point shooter back. You could have. I'm trying to remember the roster. You maybe could have got Jamal Crawford for the sake of just throwing him in the trade, right? Throw him in the trade, right? But so, nonetheless, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun to watch the playoffs now more in the East because you have an even more competitive team. You have Toronto, you have Boston, and then you have the 76ers.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, Milwaukee as well. But the 76ers now really put themselves to potentially be contenders. But like I said, I think it's going to be them and the Celtics. And I don't necessarily know if they're better than the Celtics.
Like early prediction, do the Sixers make it to the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I think they play the Celtics.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
But if I had the extremely early prediction, I think the Celtics still are the better team, barring an injury.
Okay, I agree.
Real quick, because we don't even want to extend on this topic too much. But 3-point shooter, right? Yeah, there's a new free agent on the block. Jared, this new free agent on the block. Any chance the 76ers go get Carmelo Anthony?
Don't even. Why even bring up that question? Stop it.
I know.
No.
But let's
don't
just jump on this real quick. We don't have a
do
lot of time to talk about this topic, but I thought it'd be a funny transition. Carmelo Anthony, he wants to leave the Rockets. Very similar to this Jimmy Butler situation, except he sucks and Jimmy Butler's good. Where does Carmelo and Anthony end up?
Retired.
Do you think he just retires?
I think that's what he should do. He's not going to.
Go to Lakers. Watch.
Oh, he won't. So I was listening to a report.
That
earlier,
minimum.
and
Get ready for it, Carmelo.
last year when LeBron was in Cleveland, there was an opportunity that basically if LeBron wanted Carmelo in Cleveland, Carmelo would have been in Cleveland last year.
So you're saying LeBron doesn't want him.
And this offseason, there was an opportunity for Carmelo to go to LA. But LeBron wasn't really pushing hard for it. So, and essentially, if LeBron wants it to happen, it will probably happen. And if he doesn't, it probably won't.
Yeah.
At this point, Carmelo Anthony is probably not going to the Lakers. Just in my opinion, and I was talking about this to you off air, Nick, I really think in this point in Carmelo Anthony's career, he just needs to retire, right? You want people to remember you for the greatness that you had, not for trying to extend your career to win when you really just don't have it anymore. So go out somewhat on top, and have people remember you for the good times, because you try to play another 2-3 years and jump around from team to team to team to team, you're just you're washing away the last couple of years of your career. So go retire. You have enough money. You don't need more money, and live the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, I don't see a spot Carmelo going to. I made the joke about the 76ers because they need 3-point shooting, but that's probably not going to happen. I don't see a team. Maybe you can go join Dwight Howard in Charlotte or something. I don't know. Is that even more? No, he's playing in
Atlanta,
Washington. But,
Washington.
Wow,
oh,
look at us!
All right,
look at us. We care so less about the rest of the East besides those 4 teams that we don't even know
more so
who
about
Dwight Howard plays.
But okay, yeah.
Who he play for? All right, let's transition. No need to talk about Carmelo more than about 2 minutes. What was I going to look at here? I'm blanking. What were we going to talk about next?
The Warriors.
The Warriors. You're right, and this is so close to my heart too, because my Clippers, man. My Clippers are fighting hard this season. They beat the Bucks, and then they beat the Warriors back to back. Who would have expected that?
Still
they
trying
beat
to
the
figure
Warriors
out how you're a Clippers fan
so
in the
bad.
first place. But that's another conversation.
I feel bad for them, Jared, because the Lakers have LeBron now, and the Clippers' best player is Tobias Harris. Okay, so I feel bad for them.
Who?
But they play hard.
Oh, okay.
They play hard. They win games. They beat the Timberwolves the other night. They beat the Bucks, and now they beat the Warriors. Okay, and so they beat the Warriors so bad in overtime that the Warriors now are fighting because they go, how did we lose to the Clippers? Right? That's how. No, not really. But so if you don't know the story, Clippers and Warriors the other night is 106-106. Warriors had last possession. Instead of calling a timeout maybe or giving the ball to one of your stars, Draymond Green decided to dribble up the ball and try to play hero ball, dribble the ball off his knee, sent the game into overtime where the Clippers eventually stole one and gave the Warriors their 3rd loss of the season. After that play, before they went into overtime, there was a confrontation between Kevin Durant and Draymond Green at the bench that we now know Draymond brought up his contract situation. They said other things to each other. It went back into the locker room after the game. Draymond ended up getting suspended for Tuesday night's home game against the Atlanta Hawks. Jared, what the hell's going on? Is this a real thing? Because we know Draymond said that he probably won't come back to the Warriors since they got Durant. I've heard him say that in the past. There's been rumors that Durant probably won't play for the Warriors next year. He might jump to the Lakers, somebody else. Is this a cause for concern if you're a Golden State Warriors fan? You've been living up these 3 out of 4 championships, and now all of a sudden your team is like,
Oh yeah,
the team is
Oh,
fighting.
yeah. This is concerned. Steph Curry is injured right now, right? You have 2 of your other 3-star players. I mean, they have 4 stars. They technically have 5
But
stars.
Clay kind of
One's
just
injured.
Clay just kind of sits back and lets things happen.
He does.
Clay doesn't.
He does. Draymond Green.
He's
is
also
the-
another guy they've said is probably going to leave.
Draymond Green is the heart. Klay Thompson's not going anywhere. If Klay Thompson leaves, or if the Warriors let Klay Thompson leave, then they're complete idiots.
Good point.
He's not going anywhere.
He's one of the most valuable players.
Draymond Green is the heart and soul of this team, right? He is the fiery guy. He's like the Kevin Garnett of the old Celtics teams in 2007, 2008 when they won the championship. He brings that fire and that energy. I mean, he almost leads the league every year in technical fouls. And you know what Steve Kerr says? Listen, you need a type of fiery guy on Steve Kerr played with Dennis Rodman, okay? So he knows about guys that are feisty and can get under other people's skin. So I'm completely okay with having Draymond Green on the team. There's 2 things to this. One, Draymond Green needs to understand that he is not the star of this team. He's not the reason that people come out to see this team play. Now, he's a big component of that, but when Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and oh, by the way, Kevin Durant, arguably the best player in the game, are on your team, you, unfortunately, take the 4th seat in this entire equation,
That's
okay?
true, he does.
So, for him, I think one of the reasons why he dribbled the ball up the court was because Steph Curry wasn't playing, and he probably wanted to prove, like, hey, you know what, listen, I can also be a key component offensively. Draymond Green is there to be the energy guy, the spark guy, play great defense, guard the other team's best player, get block shots, all that type of stuff. He does a lot of the dirty work. He doesn't get many opportunities to be the star offensive player. So I think in his head, for a second, that was a reason why he dribbled the ball up the court. But in his defense, he's been doing this ever since he came into the league. He's been one of those point forward guys that when Steph Curry and or Klay Thompson aren't in the game, Draymond Green dribbles the ball up the court, right? He's like Lamar Odom, Magic Johnson in that sense where today's athletes, the power forwards and centers, they do so much more than just running up the court. They take the ball and they run up the court, right? Look at Adetokounmpo and look at Karl Anthony Towns. Look at all these other stars that dribble the ball up the court now. So in Draymond Green's defense,
LeBron James, for example.
yeah, right. Like he's accustomed to doing this. It's not like he's never dribbled the ball up the court before, right? There's been many times when he's gone coast to coast and ended up with a dunk or a layup.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I know I'm kind of teetering back and forth. Mm-hmm. Really, what I'm trying to say is, I think Draymond Green needed to realize the situation of the game, realize that you have Kevin Durant, a lethal sharpshooter,
or Klay Thompson
on the court, or Klay Thompson. You need to give the ball to them and let them make the decision, right? If they get double or triple teamed, let them make the decision to then pass the ball back. If they get a one-on-one situation, let them go to work and let them try to win.
The thing with this, too, was there was time on the clock, too. This wasn't like 1 second, Draymond puts up a shot because he has to. This was 12 seconds, I run down the court and lose the ball with 7, right? So it's like, this was, strange. And like you said, you have 2 of the best shooters in the game on your team on the court at that point, in Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. You don't pass the ball. I agree with you. Plus, Clippers are a tough defensive team, too. This team is literally built. What do you think? You're just going to be able to run down the court and get past some of these elite defenders they have? I mean, look at the score was 106-106. It's a Warriors game, and they have 106 in regulation. Okay, that's already a win for the Clippers in my mind. And then you're trying to just drive down the court in the last 8 seconds. Immediately he was stopped. So. Yeah, you're right. He might have been playing. I don't know if that's what was going through his head, the whole hero ball thing, but that's what he did. And so that's probably why Kevin Durant is like, hey, man, like I get there's some tension between us because I might leave and all this stuff, but you can't be doing that. We're trying to still win. Like, we can't just, So I agree with you. It's a weird situation over there. We'll see how far, it gets. This might end up being one of those situations if Draymond doesn't calm down and if Durant doesn't ever get on the same page with him, where you might have to trade Draymond Green. So we'll see if that happens. That would be that'd be the end all craziest situation in this whole thing. But if a guy can't play if the two guys can't coexist, number one, you might not win a finals, right? Even with this stacked roster, if you guys can't get along, you might not be able to win a finals, and one of the guys might have to go.
Right.
So
Yeah, really quickly, I'm scrolling through right now, and Green was suspended just for that one game without pay.
Yeah. Oof, take his money away.
He gave up $120,000 for that game. He makes $120,000 per game.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, I know we were talking about NFL at the beginning of the segment and talking about players
NBA
and trying to
players
get their
get
money.
paid so much more.
NBA players just get a ridiculous amount of money.
And we thought baseball players get paid a lot.
Oh, I know. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
$120,000.
But it's $120,000 out of his pocket. It's disrespect by the Warriors. You're spending a guy without pay on your own team. This isn't an NBA suspension for kicking a guy in the balls. This is a guy getting suspended from his own team. All right, got 5 minutes left in the segment. Jared, Lakers, hometown Lakers. They're still struggling, man. LeBron James has come out and said that he almost snapped. He almost cracked the other day. It seems like almost every game, there's not a lot of positives that come out of the game. I listen to local radio, too, here in LA. They were talking about yesterday who's going to be on the team next year. Because it's definitely not going to be all of these guys. Right? Is Lonzo going to be there? Is Kuzma going to be there? Is Ingram going to be there? I heard Stephen A. Smith say on his radio show, my dad comes home and goes, they're going to trade Brandon Ingram. I go, what?
Oh, Stephen A. Smith has been a huge component of that.
Yeah. And then he explained it to me, and I go, that kind of makes sense, right? They add Tyson Chandler out of the blue, and that's like LeBron's new favorite player on Lakers. Jared, as a Laker fan, obviously, I like to watch both teams. The Lakers are kind of hard to watch sometimes because of the way they play, even with LeBron on the team. What's going on? How did the Lakers get better this year so they can make the playoffs? Because to be honest, it's going to be a tough road to make the playoffs, and they're barely beating the Atlanta Hawks. So what do they have to do?
They're young. They need experience. They need to play more games.
Well, that's what I was saying
and you mentioned that LeBron almost blew up. I think a reason why he kind of held back on that is because he realized, man, obviously this is my first year in LA, but I have a very, very young team, right?
Yeah.
When he was obviously with Cleveland coming up, and when he finally won the championship with Cleveland, that team had been together for a couple years. When he was in Miami, the team was basically together for 4 years. So this team is very, very young. LeBron is easily, maybe Tyson Chandler is probably a little older, but like LeBron is the elder statesman on this team. You have Lonzo Ball, who just turned 21. Mm-hmm. I think Brandon Ingram is
21,
22. Yeah. Kuzma is very young. Josh Hart is very young. The majority of these players are very, very... I mean, even the coaching staff is super...
Yeah.
Luke Walton, the head coach, is... I don't even know if he's 40.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
So
yeah.
this entire nucleus and team is very, very young. So I think LeBron had to say, all right, I need to cool my head a little bit and understand that, you know what, we're going to go through growing pains, right? This isn't a seasoned veteran team that I can just blow up on and say, hey, guys, we've been here before.
That's not...
This team hasn't been here before. This team has not had to handle this type of spotlight since Kobe Bryant was here. And the majority of these players were not around when Kobe Bryant last played a game for the Lakers in Staples Center. So to have this type of 24/7 spotlight on you is very new to this entire team. So I think they're trying to figure out how to handle it, how to go about themselves. And I think these are just some of the types of growing pains that this team will go through this year.
Yeah, and I think a lot fans got to calm down here now. And even myself, I thought, Lakers are going to be, they're going to be like 7-3 by now. I didn't know exactly how many games they played, but what is their record? Their current record right now?
7-6.
7-6, right? That's a little disappointing if you're a Lakers fan, right? But
They've won 3 in a row.
They won 3 in a row, yes, but they're beating subpar teams. I know the Kings have had a good year this year, but it's the Sacramento Kings. You know what I'm saying? You're beating the Atlanta Hawks. My problem is they're winning every game by 1, and they're almost blowing a ton of these games. I remember when I was watching the game on Halloween night, they were winning by 25 at one point, and then all of a sudden it's 1, and even my mom's getting interested in the game, right? She's like, what's going on, right? But so I think Lakers fans just, calm down. RELAX, as the great Aaron Rodgers would say. LeBron James, first of all, is not Kobe Bryant. He does not take the ball down the court and drain 2 threes in a row to tie a game. That's not the type of player he is. He's a driver. He's a 2-point guy, right? He can make threes, but He's a guy that likes to drive the basket, get physical, right? That's not how Kobe was. And I think that Laker fans just expect LeBron to be Kobe. They expect Lonzo to be Kobe. You know, they expect Brandon Ingram to be Kobe. There is no Kobe Bryant on this team. I think the closest thing you're going to get is Josh Hart as far as a big game shooter, you know, if he can get to that level. But so I think, you know, there's going to be games like this. The Cavaliers, they were more of a veteran team. They knew how to win more. That's why they won more games. That's why, and they also played in the East, so they were going to win a lot more games. Lakers fans, just need to relax a little bit, okay? These games are going to be tough. The team is young. LeBron James cannot do it all, but he's not a sharpshooter. He's not Kevin Durant. He's not Klay Thompson. He's not Steph Curry, right? He is the Draymond Green situation here where he's going to drive the basket, he's going to do all he can, but he might not be able to make that big shot, and a lot of these games are going to be close. So it is frustrating as a fan of LA basketball teams to see the team 7-6 and barely beating the Atlanta Hawks. But I think the team needs to relax. Can you kind of echo that statement too? Or do you think there's actually a problem with this team and they need to make some moves?
No, I'm going to keep saying the same thing. Now, do I think that by the, come closer to the trade deadline, will they
should
consider making
they
some
need to
types
make
of
the
move?
playoffs.
Yes, I think they need another shooter on this team.
Come on,
maybe
kidding,
a little more. Oh my gosh, I didn't say that.
Totally
I think a little more veteran leadership on this team to go along with LeBron James, because I think right now LeBron obviously on the court is carrying a lot of the weight as far as being the point forward, dribbling the ball up, running the offense every time he's on the floor. So I think to have another veteran that he can trust with the ball in certain game time situations, I think would be nice to take a little bit of pressure off of him. But really, like I said, we're still early in the season, right? We're not even 2 months in. So I think this team still needs to start to gel. Listen, this isn't college football where you need to win by 30 to make a statement. A win is a win. So, and I hear what you're saying, that this team, has blown some big leads and is only winning games by 1 and 2. All they need to do is get wins, right? And they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. They have a good test tonight. They're on ESPN at home against the Trailblazers, but they've already played twice in Portland. And it's kind of interesting that their schedule is set up this way to where they play a Western Conference opponent 3 times in the first 2 months. So both those games were in Portland. They lost the first game and then won the second. So now they get in for a third time around. I think this is a test, another big test on their schedule to see how do we play, because Portland is a really, really good team. We know that. We see that. We know Portland plays well at home. We'll see how they do on the road. But I think tonight will be another measuring stick as to where this team will go. Because right now they're sitting at 4th in the division. Obviously, Golden State is in the lead. And then you have the Clippers and you have the Sacramento Kings, who, like you mentioned, are having a good year. So if the Lakers, at some point, they're going to need to go on some type of run, 10, 12-game winning streak, and start to build some confidence for themselves. And I think there's a stretch of games coming up where they're starting to play some lesser opponents. So this will be the time to strike for this team.
Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And you're right, they are beating these teams. It's just a little frustrating because you thought LeBron, superstar, you'd be winning games by a lot, and they're just rarely doing that. So, Lakers fans, relax. All right, the Lakers will be fine, but they do need to figure out what's going on. These players need to kind of develop a little bit quicker. All right, we'll be right back here on the Cover 2 Podcast. Coming up next, another edition of Do You Care? It's Cover 2 Podcast on OC Rock Radio.
Shohei Ohtani lived up to his overseas reputation and two-way ability to become the 4th Japanese-born player to win Rookie of the Year honors. The Angels pitcher/designated hitter was first on 25 of the writers' 30 ballots, with the other 5 first-place votes going to the Yankees' Miguel Andujar, the runner-up.
At the age of 14, I had set 2 goals for myself: play professional hockey and one day play in the National Hockey League. All I wanted was to be a hockey player. All I needed was the opportunity. To be here with you tonight is simply overwhelming. There are no words to express how humble and grateful I am to be part of the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Sorry what's happened at your town, guys. It's rough, but hopefully being here tonight can make it a little better, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
We need the team. You guys help us out. First of all, you got to take that Raiders down. You guys help us out by coming out and standing with our guys during the anthem? Our guys are fired up for it. Okay, so you guys are going to be part of the anthem and stand with our team right out there.
We are back on the Cover 2 podcast, and it is time for our favorite segment of the show. Nick, what time is it?
It's time for Do You Care?
Didn't want to blow out the mics. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
Let
backing
go
up
at the end.
and not blowing my eardrums out. It is time for Do You Care, ladies and gentlemen, where we have a bunch of different topics, a bunch of different sports, and a little rapid fire. We give a quick analysis if we care or not. So we're switching it up today. I typically get the first question, but today, Nick, you get the first question since you've been so generous and always giving it to me.
Yes.
So, Nick, do you care that Joe Mauer has officially retired?
I do. Joe Mauer has been one of my favorite players in the MLB the last couple of years. He's a class act. The last couple of years, since Minnesota moved out of the Metrodome, I know that was a long time ago, Mauer's had some trouble because they have a difficult kind of right field wall. Mauer hasn't been able to hit home runs, so he actually changed his style of play to try to hit more line drives and to try to hit more ground balls and kind of become more of an on-base guy rather than an MVP candidate who can hit like 20, 30 home runs. So the last couple of years, we really haven't heard or talked a lot about Joe Mauer. I mean, I can't even think about how many times we've even mentioned Joe Mauer on this show in the 2+ years we've been doing this show. So Joe Mauer, though, one of the best high school baseball players of all time. Go look it up. Go look up his stats. The guy batted like 800 in high school. It was ridiculous. Minnesota guy through and throughout. Didn't try to get traded to a contending team. The kind of a Larry Fitzgerald type of player in the MLB. And you know what? It's funny. I actually kind of predicted he'd retire this year. I didn't really formally do it on the podcast, just kind of talking to people because he just doesn't have a place. And Minnesota had a bad year, and they kind of need to start moving in their younger players. And Mauer just wasn't, since he started to get more on base. He just was losing it. His knees were really affected from catching, and so he kind of did need to retire. He did the Carmelo Anthony thing. He kind of did the right thing. It's his time. He needs to go, and he retired. But good luck. Potential Hall of Famer Joe Mauer is. I know his stats kind of curtailed off, but still one of the best catchers of all time. Any catcher that wins the MVP probably should be considered in the MVP, or excuse me, in the Hall of Fame conversation. So we'll see that 5 years down the road. But nonetheless, good luck in your retirement, Joe Mauer. All right, sticking with baseball, Jared. Do you care that Shohei Ohtani won the American League Rookie of the Year? This is the topic of conversation between a couple of us right now.
I do care, and it's not just because I'm an Angels fan. Listen, obviously Ohtani coming to the Angels and basically choosing to play with the Angels, right?
Yes.
He could have chose to go anywhere, New York, Chicago, and he chose to come to the LA Angels, not even the Dodgers. So I think that was a shock to a lot of people. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is he is the first player since Babe Ruth to throw in at least 50 innings and also hit 20 home runs in the same season. Like, you don't see Major League Baseball players anymore that do that dual hit and pitch.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
you never see
maybe in sometime along in the season, because obviously this season is so long, that in a pinch, and if you're in the 18th inning of a random game, you might have a utility guy come in and pitch. But Shohei Ohtani, like, this is what he does, right? Now, obviously, he had Tommy John surgery, so he will not be pitching in the 2019 season, but he will still be hitting as a DH full-time, which I think is pretty amazing because, as Mike Trout said at the end of the season, he said the best is yet to come for this kid. So I think it's fantastic for this Angels organization. They have some obviously young stars to build around. Now we'll see with a new manager if they can kind of turn that pitching staff around, because I've been saying this and hammering this for years. That's what this team needs, consistent pitching to go along with their hitting. But just getting back to Ohtani, I think it's great for him, and I think that Mike Trout was completely right. The best is yet to come for this kid. I think he's only going to get better, and as he completely heals from his Tommy John surgery, I think we will continue to see him hit and pitch. Nick, do you care, switching to hockey, that Willie O'Ree, the first African-American NHL hockey player, was officially inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Yes, I do care. Obviously, a long time coming for Willie O'Ree. The dude is historic in his own right. I mean, that's all you have to really say. He's the Jackie Robinson of the NHL a notoriously white sport. I mean, when you look at the NHL, to find a player of a minority standard, it's hard to see. I mean, my brother and I were looking at the statistics of Latinos compared to blacks, compared to whites, compared to Japanese players in the MLB, and even the MLB had about 60% white players last season. The NHL's got to be like 90-95. I mean, we know this. So Willie O'Ree being the first black player, I'm not going to say it's bigger than Jackie Robinson, but it was even more surprising in a way how soon he joined the NHL. I think it was back in the 1950s. But so long time coming, obviously. I'm surprised it didn't come earlier. It's a great thing for the NHL. Willie O'Ree has been around the Los Angeles Kings organization, a team I follow a lot. I forget exactly which team he came up with. I don't know if you can bring that up or anything. It's not that important. But yeah, Willie O'Ree, long overdue. Great ceremony the other night. And the AHL did a good thing, obviously, because this just needed to happen. Willie O'Ree necessarily wasn't a Hall of Fame player, but what he did for the NHL and sports in Canada overall is a big thing. So he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. Doesn't necessarily matter now. He's in the Hall of Fame, and good for the NHL, good for Willie
Boston
O'Ree.
Bruins.
Boston Bruins. I thought about it. I thought it was Boston Bruins. I just didn't want to say it and be wrong. All right, Jared, do you care that... What was it? Nathan Peterman was cut from the Buffalo Bills. Man, you start laughing before the question even is.
I can't believe you're asking this question. No, I don't care about this. I'm not even going to waste my breath. No, Nathan Peterman, the guy who does nothing but throw interceptions. I mean, he must have gotten paid from the other teams because, I don't care. I've never played quarterback in my life.
From the other teams.
I could go into the NFL as a quarterback right now, and I wouldn't throw 5 interceptions in a game. So, no, I don't care. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a great dude. He doesn't deserve to be an NFL quarterback. I'm sorry. Go be a high school coach. Go sell insurance. Go do something else.
Hey, the Toronto Argonauts are calling.
But as far as an NFL quarterback goes, no, you have proven that you are not worthy of being quarterback, nor do you have the talent. So, no, the Bills, I don't know. You know what? Why did the Bills take so long to let him go? That's what I want to know.
Well, because they hadn't discovered Matt Barkley yet.
Matt Barkley. Okay. All right. The Bills organization, I don't know what the heck is going on with that team. We mentioned it earlier. They beat the Vikings, they beat the Jets, and then they lose every other game. I
thought it was Josh Allen, but then Matt Barkley comes out of the depths
team
of
is just
modern day and somehow beats the
complete mess. Nick, so no, I do not care. For those of you who did not get that one, Nick, do you care? This is actually a really, really cool thing. The San Francisco 49ers this past Monday for their Monday Night Football game, they brought Paradise High School, the high school football team, the entire team and coaches to the Monday Night Football game.
Yes, I do care. I think this is one of the few times I've said I care about all three topics. But if you don't know what we're talking about, because you might not know what Paradise High School is, there are obviously major wildfires going on in both Northern and Southern California. Paradise is the city that's been affected the most. The death toll last night, as of Tuesday night, was 48 people in this town. Wow. People are literally, not to get too graphic on this show because it's a sports show, but people are literally dying at their cars trying to get in and getting away from this fire. And the Paradise High School was burned completely to the ground. Football team was 8-2 this season, about to start their playoff run. As you know, if you're in Southern California, the playoffs are going on. Some big matchups coming up. But Paradise High School, although a lower division, were one of the best teams in Northern California. And they had to cancel their football season. They had to just forfeit the rest of their games because they literally don't even have a high school to go to this week because it's burned to the ground. Most of the city is burned to the ground. The 49ers obviously did Monday Night Football against New York Giants. They brought this Paradise High School team on the field with them. They brought them to the game, and they gave them what they deserved because this team, it's wildfires. You can't do much about a wildfire burning down your high school. 49ers bring them on the field to talk about more about these fires and the way they've affected sports. I believe it was the Raiders and Chargers played in Oakland. The players were making a joke about how the smoke in the air, the smell of smoke, the Chargers players, it took away the smell of marijuana normally smelled in the Coliseum. That's a little bit more of a joke, but just to show you the effect. the Kings and Lakers played the other night, there was smoke inside the stadium in Sacramento, and LeBron said it affected him during the game. That's how much just that's Sacramento and Oakland. They're not that close to each other, and there's smoke everywhere. If you watch that Monday Night Football game too, the game was hazy as hell the entire time. So these wildfires really affecting teams. Like I said, the Rams had to move out of Thousand Oaks because of the fires here in Southern California. So not good at all for just people living in these towns, obviously, because of the death toll that's happened. But sports are also being affected. It was a great thing the 49ers did for this Paradise High School team. Love to see that kind of stuff, and that team absolutely deserved it. You don't get a playoff game. What's better than getting to be on the field on Monday Night Football, national audience, getting Odell Beckham?
It's a great gesture by the 49ers.
Obviously. Jared, last question. This is a personal one. Do you care that the old Battle of the Victory Bell happens this Saturday? UCLA and USC play.
No, I don't. I don't. Typically, I would. I mean, I'm sure I'm still going to watch the game. But the fact that both of these teams are garbage, and I don't think I'm saying that even lightly.
Not with UCLA for sure.
No, USC is 5-5, and when they started off the season ranked 15th, and with the talent that they had, having an opportunity, a lot of people were talking about them potentially being a playoff contender this year, and Clay Helton and all these teams, and the biggest thing was how are they going to replace Sam Darnold? You bring in JT Daniel, the true freshman, but he's going to be this savior, right? Well, that did not happen, and UCLA with their new head coach Chip Kelly was supposed to come in and revitalize that program and bring his running gun offense, and they're now 2-8. I mean, I guess the back end of the season they've played a little better, but the first 5 games it was like, whoa, what is going on here?
Horrendous,
so this game, while it is still a rivalry and while it still means something to these players and the former alumni and former players, from an outside perspective, it does not have that juice nor that energy that you would normally see. I mean, typically this game would, I'm sure be televised on ESPN and there'd be so much hype and publicity. It's going to be played on Fox, but it's not a huge game. This game has no implication other than just the pure rivalry aspect. So, no, I don't care. It's a toss-up on who wins this actual game. Is it played? Where is it played?
UCLA.
At UCLA?
Yeah. Quick prediction while we end.
UCLA, because they're at home. I don't know. I mean, I'm a USC fan, and I have no faith in them right now.
The thing is, I'm actually going to predict UCLA too. It's I wore a UCLA shirt today. Number one, because I just came back from Boston. I had nothing clean to wear, and number two, UCLA. Hey, they're 2-8. Like you said, they played better. I'm not going to sit here and make a giant prediction. This is Do You Care? Nobody really cares about this. We're just going to make a quick prediction because we know we have a lot of Southern California listeners. But I'm going to go with UCLA only because USC seems to be in disarray. I mean, the media wants Clay Helton fired. They're losing.
This could be his last game.
Yeah, they're losing. This means a lot more for USC. UCLA loses this, whatever. They're 2-9. They finish the season. Their season's over. They have no chance at anything. They're not going to get a bowl. UCLA should fight their hearts out for this game, but USC needs to win this game. You lose and go to 500. I mean, there's a chance USC. Here's the thing. Think about this, Jared. If USC loses, they're losing to Notre Dame. Last game of the season, they're not making a bowl. So USC has to win this game. If Clay Helton wants to keep his job, if the team wants to make a bowl and not make a mockery out of LA football, but Chip Kelly has already done that. I'm a UCLA fan, and they've already made a mockery out of LA football already. So, I'm going to go UCLA too. They're at home. I think UCLA is not necessarily in disarray. They're just an extremely young team that hasn't figured out who they are yet. USC doesn't know who they are. They're a team with a freshman quarterback that nobody wants necessarily to play. They think other quarterbacks are better to play, and nobody likes to coach. So I'm going to go UCLA as well too. One of the reasons we brought up this question at the end of Do You Care, though, was because we're transitioning into the college football segment of the show. We're going to be coming back. Of course, we're going to talk about Alabama. Clemson had a big game. Notre Dame has a big game this week. We're going to jump into college football and a little bit into college basketball. So a college sports segment coming up next on the other side of this quick break here on OC Rock Radio.
Let's start with Kansas last night, because Kansas, #1 team in the country. Do you think they're still the #1 team in the country?
No.
Okay.
No, I thought Kansas was good. I thought Michigan State's going to get really good. But the #1 team in the country is Duke, and it's not close.
Victory formation for the Ohio State Buckeyes as Dwayne Haskins takes a knee. The offense not great today. But special teams for Urban Meyer. Chrisman, 9 punts. He averaged 37.8 yards per punt with a long of 53 yards. He knocked down 6 punts inside the 15, 5 in a row inside the 7. Drew Chrisman, you've got a game ball coming up, big fellow. 26-6. Ohio State beats Michigan State.
We are back here on the Cover 2 Podcast, final segment of the day. If you are just joining the show right now, we talked a little bit earlier about the NFL, the Le'Veon Bell situation, stuff like that. And then earlier in the show, we also talked about Jimmy Butler, that big trade, LeBron and the Lakers, Carmelo, and also the Warriors conflict. So if you missed that, go on, listen on YouTube. A little bit later, we'll have that up sometime today. But if you're listening right now, we're going to jump into college football to end the show. A little college sports. We'll talk about a little bit about college basketball a little bit later because there really isn't a lot of college football to talk about, considering that they, the SEC has decided to play teams like Saddleback College this week.
Worst week.
Yeah,
of
they
college
played a bunch
football.
of community colleges this week in the Citadel and UMass Amherst and all these BS teams that they shouldn't be playing. And so we really only have one big matchup to talk about and then a couple of upsets that could possibly happen but would be insane if they actually did. So more we're going to talk about the fact that the top 25 once again came out. The good thing about doing this show on Wednesdays live is that we always get the top 25 before our show, so we get to discuss that. And even the top 25 didn't change, Jared. The top 10, first time ever, right, in the college football playoff era, the top 10 did not change one bit. So as it is, I'm going to try to go off the top of my head because I think I know it from last week. It's Alabama number 1, Clemson number 2, Notre Dame number 3, Michigan 4, Georgia 5, Oklahoma 6, LSU 7, Washington State 8, West Virginia 9, and Ohio State number 10. And then once again this week, like we're saying, there's really only one big game, and this is a big game, though, because you have Notre Dame taking on Syracuse. Now, it is in Notre Dame, so the line is probably going to be toward...
It's actually at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, it is?
Yes, this game is being played at...
well, then that's an advantage for Syracuse. Now, Notre Dame has a huge fan base, so they'll be... I forgot about that.
Yeah, this game is playing at 11:30 Eastern Time, so 8:30 Pacific if you're here on the West Coast. But it is playing, yes, in Yankee Stadium in New York. So a little more of an advantage for Syracuse.
Absolutely.
But like you mentioned, I'm sure Notre Dame fans will travel well and will show up.
No, exactly. So it actually changes a little bit. Not much, though. The one good thing about this game is, so obviously you have Notre Dame, who has to go undefeated. They have to go undefeated to make the college football playoff. And there's a chance even if they go undefeated, that they might not make it because of the way the college football playoff, the way they do it with the conference championships, there potentially is a fit team right now that could get in over Notre Dame. So you really have to beat every ranked opponent like Syracuse. The thing about Syracuse is, when you talk about Syracuse football the last couple of years, it's really been nothing besides maybe an upset of Clemson. There's been not much. This year, though, a little more legit. Now, I know Louisville sucks. And I did this last week. I said, wow, Clemson beat Louisville 77-16. Louisville fired their coach. Not important last week. Bobby Petrino's out. But Syracuse also killed Louisville this week. I believe it was 54-13, the score. So Syracuse coming in, they're a legit team. They're not some BS ranked team like Kentucky was, to be honest, who was barely beating teams like Missouri and Vanderbilt. This Syracuse team is beating teams that they need to beat by a lot, and they're beating good teams. I believe they're only two. They had a tough loss to Pittsburgh, and they lost to Clemson
the week before
in a close game. So, this Syracuse team is one of the better teams in college football. Not in the top 10, but they're one of the better teams. This is a test for Notre Dame, probably their biggest test since Michigan early in the year, which they succeeded in. That was the first game of the year. So, Jared, what are your thoughts? If you want to give thoughts on the top 10 not changing, if you don't, go on to the Syracuse-Notre Dame matchup because this is clearly the biggest game coming up this week. Then we'll go back and talk about last week's games as well.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all that the top 10 was unchanged, and you made a good point. We were talking before we came back on air that unless there is a major upset this could possibly be what the top 4 looks like. Right, I mean, unless there's
at least next week.
Right. Unless Notre Dame
I don't
loses.
think I don't think Notre Dame is moving above Clemson or Alabama if they win this game.
Unless when Michigan plays Ohio State, if they lose to Ohio State, that could catapult Ohio State. But if the top teams right now continue to win, then this could be it. So I'm not surprised at all that there were no changes. And going to this Notre Dame Syracuse game, you're right. Syracuse, you really think about them from a college athletics standpoint as a basketball filled school, right? They made a name for themselves for that. I mean, Donovan McNabb came out of Syracuse, so he made a name for himself there as far as the football program goes. But really, this team came out of nowhere because when we were making our predictions before the season started, I don't think I mentioned Syracuse once.
No, I mean...
Right? I'm pretty sure we probably both would have had them at the bottom of the ACC standings, and right now they're sitting right behind Clemson. And I know we talked about this last week, but I just wanted to mention this again. The way that the ACC is matched up, Clemson and Syracuse, clearly the 2 best teams in the entire ACC will not be able to play each other for the ACC championship because they're in the same division. So it is going to be Clemson versus either Pittsburgh or Virginia in the Coastal Division. So unfortunately, we won't get to see that Clemson-Syracuse matchup.
Well, we did
again.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, we won't be able to see it again. So for Syracuse, this is really, I mean, they're going to get a bowl game, but this is like the highlight of their season right here. Yeah. This is their game. It's basically in their backyard, right? And this is the toughest opponent other than Clemson that they're going to play all year. So I think this is going to be somewhat of a shootout because Syracuse can score points. And I have no doubt that they will be able to score on this Notre Dame defense. My thing is I don't think they'll be able to stop Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So I think this game could get into the high 30s, even potentially the 40s. I think it's going to be a shootout. Notre Dame clearly has the better talent, which is why I'm going to pick them to win this game. But I think this will be a very, very good game to watch, and one that at the beginning of the year you're like, oh, Notre Dame, Syracuse, easy win for Notre Dame. Not so much anymore. Syracuse has proven they can play against tough opponents, and I think they're going to come out and play a very, very strong game.
Yeah, this is, I haven't, unfortunately this year, just because I've been busy on a lot of Saturdays, I haven't been able to follow this college football season as well as others. Now, but this has also kind of been the last couple of weeks the most predictable college football season the last couple of years. So I haven't missed...
Thanks, Alabama.
Yeah, I haven't missed much. But I'll watch this game. I want to see... Now, although there's not too much implication for Syracuse, because I argued this last week and I kind of hit a promo on everybody with this, that Syracuse should be playing Clemson in the last game of the season. That should be happening. And imagine if they beat Notre Dame, that would be even a bigger matchup. But... this is a big game because we've been talking about this. The top 10. You're looking at Michigan doesn't want to play Alabama in the first round of the playoff, right? Nobody wants to be the 4th seed. This is the rare college football playoff year where it's top 3. Man, you got to get in the top 3. You do not want to play. I'll rather play Clemson. I'll play Clemson all day. Alabama looks like they're going to just terrorize whoever they play in that game. So if you're Notre Dame, number one, you need to win this game. And if you need to try to win this game handily so you can stick with that 3rd seed. Because like I said, I'm looking at it. You look at it coming up. If Michigan, who are they playing this week? Indiana, so they'll probably win. Yeah, they're playing Indiana this week. So they'll beat Indiana. Then they play Ohio State, right? If they beat Ohio State, they then go to the Big Ten championship game where they'll most likely win against a Northwestern or somebody like that. And they'll go on the college football playoff because they'll for sure make the college football playoff. Probably is the number 3 seed because they'll jump ahead of Notre Dame having played one more game. So this game is extremely important for Notre Dame to show the committee, hey, we're not a team that just went undefeated because our schedule wasn't that difficult. We're a team that is legitimately a top 3 team. We're just below, a notch below Clemson and Alabama. We need to be the 3rd seed because you need to be battling for the 3rd seed if you're in college football right now. Getting in is great, but do you really want to play Alabama more than likely in a road type of game this year? Because Alabama, this is one of the best Alabama teams of all time. So this is a huge game for Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame wins it. I think it's close.
Just for a quick second, we have a little bit of time.
No, we have tons of time.
I want to talk about, and I'm tired of Notre Dame being an independent, right?
Hey, they're in the ACC and everything else.
You look at the end and everything you mentioned it, everything else but football.
Yeah.
Right. I'm tired of their football program being in the independent. I'm looking at the independent standings right now. There's BYU, Notre Dame, Army, Liberty, New Mexico State, and UMass. Okay, BYU and Army are the only other two football programs that I can name. Liberty has a football team. Where's that?
I don't know.
New Mexico State, I know they have a football team, but I did not know that they were independent. And UMass, I did not know they were independent either. Notre Dame, for as much of a powerhouse as they are, they need to be in a conference. Now, whether that is with the ACC and they can join the rest of their athletic programs, or it's another conference, I think that Notre Dame... why does Notre Dame get to just pick their own schedule every year? Why do they choose to be independent? How do they think that helps them? Because in today's sport, where there is a college football playoff and there is a committee, and any other team that gets in has to play in a conference championship, yet Notre Dame doesn't. So I get it. They go undefeated. They get to make up their own schedule. They beat Michigan. They beat Stanford. They beat Virginia Tech. They have an opportunity to beat Syracuse, but it's like,
who cares?
Is their schedule that they got to make, right? It's not like they're in a conference and they have to play these teams. They got to make this schedule. This schedule does not look super hard to me.
Who did they play at the beginning of the season?
They beat Michigan.
Oh, but
at home.
What am I talking about?
Right. So that win looks a lot better now, but at the beginning of the year, we weren't sure what Michigan was going to be. So my argument here is I think that Notre Dame, to catapult themselves and just eliminate the doubt of them even having an opportunity to get in, I think they need to put themselves in a conference so that they can have an opportunity to play in a conference championship game and solidify their spot. Because even if they do beat Syracuse, and they more than likely go on to beat USC to finish off the regular season, if I'm the committee, I have to sit there and say, okay, well, they don't get a conference championship game. So they have to blow out Syracuse. They have to blow out a bad USC team to leave a good taste in the committee's mouth. Because if I'm one of the committee members, I'm not saying that I'm not going to put Notre Dame in, but if Ohio State comes out and beats Michigan, if Oklahoma, or you know what I mean, if one of these first teams out wins in a decisive manner in their conference championship game, I'm going to want to put that team in ahead of Notre Dame. So to me, it doesn't make sense to me why Notre Dame is still an independent.
It's dumb on their part. Now, I want you to come up with something on your computer. I want you to pick up the Big 12 standings real quick, because I'm going to make a point right here that will absolutely go toward what you're talking about right now. In the meantime, I'll talk about Notre Dame. The only way they join a conference is if they get punished for doing this. So the Big 12 standings right now, as it looks, you got Oklahoma number 1 at 6-1 in the conference. West Virginia number 2 at 6-1 in the conference. Next week, Oklahoma and West Virginia play each other. Not in the conference championship game. They play each other as part of their schedule. So one of those teams will have 2 losses. Let's say Oklahoma wins that game, right? Let's say Oklahoma wins. They're now 7-1. West Virginia is 6-2. They end their season. West Virginia beat Texas, though, so they'll get in, I believe, into the conference championship game, which means the next week, rematch time. Oklahoma versus West Virginia. Let's say Oklahoma wins again. They're 12-1, having beat West Virginia twice, and including a lot of other good Big 12 teams. Why doesn't Oklahoma just get in over Notre Dame, right? Michigan 12-1, having played conference championship. Oklahoma 12-1, having played a conference championship against a better team too than Michigan will play. Why doesn't the Final Four just end up being Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, Oklahoma? That is the only way Notre Dame doesn't keep doing their schedule, because if you just get into the Final Four, that's great. I know I'm saying right now that you want to be top 3, but getting in is better than nothing, right? Is getting into the playoffs is always better. You know, you can be the 8th seed in the West. It's better than not being a seed at all and having to get ready for the lottery, right, for the draft. So that is the only way. If something like that happens, or if Georgia beats Alabama and something like that's the only way Notre Dame is going to not join a conference, because they're not getting punished. So, you know, one of the reasons here's a great example, the Big 12, like I'm talking about. The Big 12 got snipped from the college football playoff a couple times. TCU, Baylor, they were getting taken away because they're like, you guys don't have a conference championship game. These other teams do. They changed their rules. They said, now we have a conference championship game. We're going to play that one extra game. We'll spend more money, whatever it was. We'll play at Cowboy Stadium. And now they're going to get in. Oklahoma got in last year. This year they have a chance again. So that's the only way Notre Dame changed it. Also, we were talking about this a little bit off break. The only way the SEC stops playing these community college teams the second last week is if they get punished. And they're not getting punished, they're not going to change. That's all it takes. All it takes is one team to get screwed. And then the committee needs to come out and say, hey, you guys played Citadel. You guys don't deserve, or you play UMass, all that stuff. You guys now don't get in over that 4th seed or something like that. That's the only way it could happen.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. It's something that I wasn't necessarily thinking about right there. The only thing that I'm reserved about with Oklahoma getting in is their defense has looked so atrocious.
Oh, dude, the last couple weeks they're barely squeaking out wins.
I mean, listen, I know that their offense can score points with almost anyone in the country, but their defense, they can't stop a nosebleed, man. I mean, it's seriously pathetic to be that big of a team, right? And to get those types of recruits, like you would think that, I don't know if it's the talent level on the defense or if it's a defensive coordinator just not coming up with the right schemes, but literally, like Oklahoma, they played Oklahoma State last week and they barely squeaked out a 1-point victory. Now Oklahoma State is obviously,
look at the week before too.
Right, and then they give up 46 to Texas Tech. I mean, Kansas State, they only gave up 14.
How much Texas? What was the Texas?
That was they lost 40-45. So
Texas is not a world beater on offense.
I have almost zero confidence in this Oklahoma defense. So that would be, I think that's the major knock on that team right now is, yes, offensively, I think they, from an offensive standpoint, if they win out and they win their conference championship game, then they have an argument. But the argument against them is that, can your defense hold up against an Alabama? Hell no.
Well, I'm not even saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying I did this. I had a long plane flight yesterday. I was looking up a lot of this stuff to try to figure out who could possibly get in over Notre Dame. And I saw that or even West Virginia. West Virginia beats Oklahoma. They beat Texas as well, who beat Oklahoma. So that's probably on their radar too. You look at actually, I think if Oklahoma lost, though, they would play Texas. So that probably West Virginia might be a little difficult for West Virginia to get into the Final Four after all. I'm just saying, if Oklahoma would do that, let's say they beat the hell out of West Virginia 2 weeks in a row, they have a better claim than Notre Dame. If Notre Dame struggles against Syracuse and yeah, they beat Michigan, but does that you played Northwestern? They're not ranked. USC, you're probably going to beat. They're terrible. Florida State is atrocious. Virginia Tech is not as good as they were. So you still down the lines, it's like you need to punish these teams for bad schedules and non-conference championship games. You see them do it in the past. That's the only way Notre Dame cannot make it. Although that's a good discussion. We need to move on a little bit. So from last week's games, obviously you had Kentucky I'm going to do this, Jared, quote-unquote upset by Tennessee. I think this was coming. Kentucky, the number 11 team, gets beat by an unranked team, but I didn't really think Kentucky even should have been ranked. So that's a good thing. Ohio State, though, big road win against Michigan State. I think they shut them out to 6 points or something like that, or 10 points.
Yeah, 26 to 6.
Yeah, so
it was close up until like the midway through the third quarter.
But here's the thing: it gives me more confidence that Ohio State could possibly beat Michigan, because Michigan looks like they're just rolling. They're going to make the Final Four. And so I think this is a good thing. Ohio State gives themselves confidence. I know they had a tough start to the year. They lost Nick Bosa. I was glad to see that too. And then also West Virginia, like I said, Michigan, Washington State, Georgia, they all beat solid opponents last week by a lot too. So those it helps them with the committee. These teams aren't barely squeaking out wins, besides Oklahoma. But so it's setting up for a good ending of the season. Some of the games that could be upsets this week, well, it's just teams playing the teams that aren't ranked. You have West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Michigan, Indiana, Clemson, Duke, Oklahoma, Kansas, Washington State, Arizona. Out of any of these games, is there possibly an upset in any of those games where they really could shake out this top 10?
I really don't think so. I keep looking at this Oklahoma team and saying, now Oklahoma's going to beat Kansas.
Yeah.
But how are they going to beat Kansas?
Well, they better beat them like 80-2.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because if Kansas puts up 20, 30 points, for Oklahoma, it's like, man, okay, you guys can't even
Kansas
stop
has
Kansas.
been the the wet wipe of the Big
right,
12.
but it's like if they don't leave, if they give up 20, 30 points, then Oklahoma's got some big problems. Now, other than that, I mean, LSU is going to destroy Rice. Arizona actually is looking a little better than
And Washington
than
State,
expected.
like, we've seen them blow terrible.
Right,
games.
they did beat up on Colorado last week, but you never know what could happen there. I think Washington State should handle that game. They are at home. That's a late 7:30 game. Michigan and Indiana. Indiana plays well at home, but this game is in the Big House in Ann Arbor. I think Michigan should be able to control that game. So really, no, like you mentioned, there's only that one big-time matchup, and I really expect all the other top 10 teams to control their games and win relatively easily.
Exactly. And that's why we talked about Syracuse Notre Dame, because that is the biggest game. That does have the most implications, the most legitimate implications. I disagree a little bit real quick, because we do need to move on. We have about 6-7 minutes left in the podcast. West Virginia and Oklahoma State. That Oklahoma State's played teams tough. And I believe they beat somebody earlier this year. I'm trying to remember in a pretty solid game. And it was Texas. They beat Texas at home. Can you just check real quick to see if that game is home or away? For some reason, I didn't write down home or away on my little sheet here for Oklahoma State. But I think that's
When they
the
play
one.
Texas?
No, when West Virginia plays Oklahoma State this week. Because they play Oklahoma next week, so I know that's this week.
That is at Oklahoma
Exactly.
State.
So I think that you potentially could see that. I think if West Virginia handles them well, that maybe gives them more confidence in going against Oklahoma. All right, let's switch to college basketball. Duke, we talked about them last week. They now move to number 1 in college basketball. Jared, is this a good decision by the AP poll? I personally think they're clearly the best team in college basketball. They have the 3 stars who are still all scoring like 30 points per game. This Duke, is there a team right now? I know it's super early, but how good does this Duke team really look?
This team can be as good as they want to be. The biggest question that I will have for this team, the ACC is going to be very, very tough this year. There are numerous teams that will be very, very tough. You have Virginia, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Boston College, Clemson. I mean, the ACC is going to be extremely tough. This Duke team is made up of a bunch of freshmen. They came out and whooped on Kentucky, and then they obviously handled Army in their second game, right? We know they're going to play well. How will they handle a little bit of adversity? I'm not sitting here buying this team going undefeated. Okay, it just doesn't happen in college basketball in today's world. They will lose a game or two or a couple throughout the season. How are they going to respond? Because they're all freshmen right now. Everyone is saying they're the best thing since sliced bread and that they are unstoppable. So how will they handle adversity on the road? Say they get down by 10 or 15 points on the road, right, in a hostile environment. How do they respond? That's what I want to see from this team. We know they're good. We know they can match up with just about anyone in the country. I want to see them handle adversity well, or see how they do handle it. I think that will tell a lot more about this team than just beating up on Kentucky and Army in the first 2 games of the year. So, yes, they outright deserve to be the number 1 team in the country, no doubt. But once we get into the ACC tournament, I think that's where we're really going to find out about this team and how well Coach K can get his 3 freshman stars to play.
Yeah, no, and Duke will probably remain number 1. The biggest game this week is actually tonight, if you're listening live. Michigan versus Villanova. That's number 8 versus number 18 today. That is the biggest game this week. Rather than that, there's a bunch of it's ranked teams versus non-ranked teams. So Duke will stay number 1. So we probably won't talk about them next week, unless they get upset or something like that. But this Duke team looks really, really good, and I'm excited to watch them. It's one of the few teams last couple of years where I've been really excited. I go, hey, when's Duke playing next? I want to go watch them. I want to watch them play. Not go live because we don't live in North Carolina, but like, I want to watch their basketball. I want to see Zion Williamson. I want to see Cam Reddish, right? This is it's going to be a fun team to watch, and I hope they play really well, and I hope they keep this up, and I hope they're kind of that team to beat in college basketball. Because although the tournament's fun when there's a bunch of random teams, it always does help when you have that Kentucky from that one year, right? Where who's going to beat Kentucky, right? They're undefeated. They're kicking everybody's ass. Who's going to be? I think this Duke team can be this team. All right, Jared, final thought time. What is your final thought?
My final thought is, and we didn't really get to talk about them at all because we had so much other things to talk about. The Dallas Cowboys came out and had a surprising win on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles in Philadelphia after the Cowboys lost in a pretty bad fashion last Monday night to the Tennessee Titans. Going into this week, the questions were, can this offense still function? Dak Prescott needs to play a lot better. And you know, what is this team? They're a middle-of-the-pack team, right? Well, they come into Philadelphia, who many people still think have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs and win the division. And they still do. And the Cowboys ended up beating him 27-20. And it was a kind of a back-and-forth game. You know, division rivalries are always very close. But I was very surprised at how well the Cowboys played. I think that addition of Amari Cooper is starting to pay off more and more every week as he's getting more comfortable within the offense. And you can see that teams can't just stack the box anymore. They have to account for Amari Cooper. So I think it was a great team win by the Cowboys. Leighton Vander Esch, their first-round rookie linebacker draft pick, who a lot of Cowboys fans were pretty upset that they didn't take a Calvin Ridley or another star name. Vander Esch is becoming the star of this defense with Sean Lee out. Their linebacker, he's out for a month with his hamstring injury. Vander Esch is now coming up and playing really well with Jalen Smith. So this Cowboys team, we'll see. They have a tough game against Atlanta this week. Last year they lost in Atlanta, and they gave up 6 sacks and made Atlanta's defense look like they're all pros. So we'll see if they can redeem themselves. But they need to go on somewhat of a streak if they want to win their division. So good job, Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, no, the Cowboys last week is an interesting game because they obviously had that terrible loss to Tennessee. And they kind of made the NFC East fun. And I wanted to talk about that today, but we just ran out of time. So that's good that you brought that up. Mine's going to be super biased. My final thought. UCI basketball starts 3-0. They went on the road and beat I had to look this up, number 53 ranked Texas A&M on the road. Texas A&M, though, went to the Sweet 16. UCI, one of my favorite basketball teams to watch kind of in the lower ranks because they're so close. You can go to the game for $10 or whatever and watch the game. But they beat a good team and good for them. 3-0 start. And let's keep it going. Yeah, right. Let's make a tournament again. All right, this has been the Cover 2 podcast. Once again, I'm Nick Nina.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we'll see you next week.